Good morning, Mr. President. My name is India King, and I'm here on behalf of Ilandia to brief you on the current state of our economy, which is not doing too well, as we are no longer in our long run equilibrium. We are now in a short run equilibrium of a recession. So, just to briefly discuss our economic condition, we are currently in a recession, as I said before. Our GDP growth rate is at a negative 0.8%, which means we are no longer growing and releasing products as we should, and our consumers are just not demanding anything anymore. This growth rate is indicating an economic contraction. Our unemployment rate is at 8.9%, which overall is just reflecting significant job losses. So no one is working anymore, and businesses are having to release their workers due to the lack of demand and lack of supply. Our inflation rate is at 0.4%, which is suggesting weak demand, like I said before, and our interest rates are at 1%. So people are no longer investing in our economy. These indicators, like I said before, along with very low consumer confidence, confirm that Ilandia is in the recessionary phase of a business cycle. Now, as for our first graph on the market, we have ADAS, which is our aggregate demand and aggregate supply. Now, we have a leftward shift in aggregate demand. This is reflecting weak spending and low consumer confidence, which is pushing the economy below full employment output. This is very important to the economy because if people aren't demanding anything, then businesses are no longer going to supply as much, and price levels are just overall going to increase because they're not able to push out as much product with no money or demand from the economy. Our next graph is our Phillips curve. Now, as you can see, we started at point A and we are now in point B. Point B is showing a deviation from the inflation unemployment trade-off. Here we see high unemployment and low inflation, characteristic of a recession, because our graph is showing high unemployment and low inflation. As for our next graph, we have our loanable funds market graph. This is going to show our trade-off between real interest rates and the quantity of loanable funds. As we can see here, we have a rightward shift in supply of the loanable funds, which is also known as our low demand due to low business confidence. This is because with low interest rates and weak borrowing demand, the loanable funds market is showing an underutilization of capital, another sign of recession, meaning that the government is no longer investing in businesses and they're losing money, losing workers, and nobody is just investing at all, which is going to show low money output into the economy. Now, as for our policy recommendation, I am recommending that we show an expansionary fiscal policy. To address this crisis, I recommend this due to including increased government spending on infrastructure and public services and possibly tax cuts to boost disposable income, meaning that if we cut taxes, people aren't going to have to pay as much and they're going to be willing to put more money into the economy as they did before. Fiscal stimulus is necessary because interest rates are already low, limiting the effectiveness of monetary policy. This approach will directly increase aggregate demand, helping reduce unemployment and stimulate economic growth. Now, for every action, there is always going to be a consequence. This trade-off may include higher future deficits or inflation if demand grows too quickly. But in the current low inflation rate environment, this risk is manageable, and it's one that we are willing to take. Now, for our reflection, the most challenging part of this analysis was understanding how multiple economic indicators interact during a recession. So, like I said, unemployment rate, GDP rate, and inflation and interest rates. One thing I now better understand is how critical consumer confidence and fiscal policy are in stimulating demand and stabilizing an economy. Because if consumers aren't willing to put as much effort into the economy is going to spit out less than enough for them to thrive off of. So I do think